The Department of Education, they decided that the professional degree for nurses, the nursing degree, should no longer be classified as a professional degree.
While you'll see a lot of news about nurses feeling offended at the classification change, what I'm more interested in is the actual function of what this did, which was decrease borrowing power for education for nurses.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest and greatest episode of a People Fuss podcast. My name is Doug Daniels.
And I'm Carrie Prince.
And we are here to discuss the fuss about people.
People!
That's right. We are dissecting the news and politics and everything else to discuss how people connect and disconnect in life and in love and in leadership. Carrie Prince.
Yes, Doug, Les.
What are we talking about today?
Well, today, we're talking about nurses.
Yes.
Nurses are in the news.
Not the sharks.
And no, I'm not talking about Nurse Jackie, and I'm not talking about Nurse Ratchet, and I'm not talking about Nurse Whitney, my very first Barbie doll. Look it up. She's real. No, we're talking about nurses. Nurses are in the news right now.
Yes.
And we happen to have a lot of nursing friends, some family, and that makes sense because they are the largest medical profession in the United States with 3.5 active licenses that are practicing and between 4 and 5 million licenses that are active.
That's a lot. That's like 1% of the population.
It's 1%. And compare that to, it's about like 1.1 million physicians. So
Yeah.
it's like triple the amount of physicians, which is good because we need, you know.
Or if not quadruple. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
So it's a lot. And, nurses are in the news. We're going to talk about nurses and talk about what our friends told us how they're feeling, because something that feels strangely significant happened. It's kind of like a blip in the news in terms of we're not going to war or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all over LinkedIn. It's all over my feed, and there's all these jokes. And I feel like it's actually going to this much deeper thing. And what's interesting about it, y'all, is that it's tapping into something that I actually think has been on Douglas's list for a really long time, but it's trying to solve the problem in the wrong way. So we'll get into that. So Douglas.
Or I would say maybe it's trying to solve the problem in the right way, but going about it wrongly. Just doing this piecemeal. We'll get into it.
You can get into that. We'll tell us what's going on.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, I mean, depending on when this episode is released, Donald Trump and his luminary Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, such a genius to run the Department of Education, they decided that the professional degree for nurses, the nursing degree, should no longer be classified as a professional degree. Practically, what that means is that the Department of Education will no longer be subsidizing degrees in that profession up to $50,000. So they're going down, basically. You can only pay or get subsidized loans for up to $20,000 a year. I believe you said it was $100,000 for 2 years or $200,000 for 4.
Yeah. So previously, they were in the same category as a lot of other professions like doctors and stuff, and they could borrow a much larger amount. When
I say subsidized by the federal government, that means you're basically borrowing from the federal government, and you have a very low interest fixed rate loan. It is subject to different laws and regulations than an unsubsidized loan. An unsubsidized loan is just a loan from a bank. And that means that they can basically, this isn't probably true, but they can do whatever the fuck they want. They can jack up the interest rates. It's not a fixed rate necessarily. There's just a bunch of other things. When you hear about people that are like, I borrowed $30,000, I've paid $50,000, and I still owe $60,000. Those are unsubsidized loans because those interest rates are through the roof. They make it impossible to pay the loan off. They're predatory. It's all bad things. So subsidized loans are good. It's a way that our government was guaranteeing education for people that didn't have the means to pay for it.
Yeah. So I want to jump in here and say when I first heard the story came to me like this. Nurses are no longer considered a profession. This is a slap in the face to nurses. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound right. So in looking into it, it really is not about trying to reclassify anything to do with like accreditation or anything like that. This is legitimately just a category that the federal government uses for loan disbursement. So while you'll see a lot of news about nurses feeling offended at the classification change, what I'm more interested in is the actual function of what this did, which was decrease borrowing power for education for nurses. It's nurses, physician's assistants, the physical therapists.
Right.
And there's a few professions that remained in that top category, interestingly, like chiropractors and things that
I didn't even know this. I'm upset.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you.
Quacks.
He has very strong feelings on chiropractors. So anyway, I want to look at what this sort of borrowing power decrease, what it actually really feels like, what it does, and why.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's the function of this? So here's the thing. The counter argument, the obvious counter argument that you will see, and we reached out to friends. I've been looking at lots of nurses talking about this on LinkedIn and looking at the back and forth between the population themselves. I think it's really important to let nurses speak for themselves because they're the ones that are in school doing this. They're the ones that are practicing. They're the ones that have student loans.
Yeah.
So one of the things that people are saying is maybe this is not a bad thing because maybe it will force educational institutions to lower the cost of education because of supply and demand theory, basically. Yeah. And so that's a counter argument that is worth exploring, is my point. And I explored it a bit.
Yes, because the prevailing theory as to why higher education generally has skyrocketed is because the federal government guaranteed access to money, and that allowed institutions
at least partially.
Yeah, that's the prevailing main cause, and it makes sense if you think about it. It's like the government was basically guaranteeing that every student that wanted it could get access to the money, and so institutions grew, tuition rates went up, and costs for students went up. So the theory then, the ostensible reason for this is to then take away that guarantee, and by taking away that guarantee, you are reversing that trend.
Right. So this is actually based on the Bennett hypothesis, which is funny that there's like an actual hypothesis about this, that if you increase the amount of borrowing power, then institutions will increase the price. And to some extent, there is some legitimate research that correlation, that increasing borrowing power in some sectors, mostly financial sectors, not necessarily professional, we'll get into that, but in some sectors more so than others. So like, if someone's going in to get, a degree in something that can make a lot of money, the chances of them being able to like repay those loans and stuff, right, that's kind of a safe bet. So what's interesting though is that theory has never been tested for the reverse, which is what we're talking about, that if you decrease borrowing power, that should decrease the cost of tuition. I looked at this for a while today. I had a whole little wonderful conversation with ChatGPT, and there's really no evidence that making this move would do that. So that's the first thing, is that there's no precedent for saying this will fix the cost of nursing education.
It's trickle-down bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean, that hasn't been talked about yet either. So these people saying, I hope it does this, and this thing is a problem, what I want to say is like, we agree that the cost of education is a problem in some ways, and also the ability for young people to borrow massive amounts of money, which both of us did for grad school, by the way. We understand this problem very personally. I don't regret my loans. I don't regret my education, but we understand what that is, what that process is. Yeah. You have the power to take out a ton of money, and you're not
very easily.
Yeah. And there's counseling up front on it, and there's like a lot of information up front, but by the time you get your degree and you're like moving into life, there's not guaranteed money counseling on how to repay things, right? You have to seek that out for yourself or have like a good foundational knowledge of money and have some kind of plan. Most students now, when they graduate, actually nursing is one of the degrees where, especially depending on the school you go to, a lot of times there is a good plan. There's a hospital that you might know that you want to work at. There's programs that actually place you in those things. Nursing has like a really great funnel to work, right? It's not like getting a dance degree, dance and theater, I should say.
Yeah.
Which again, I found work right out of college, so I did make it happen. I worked during college, and I like found pathways to work in the arts while I was at a really good school that helped me do that. Right, like I had mentorship and I had job placement before I graduated because there were programs at the school for me to do that. And nursing kind of does that too. So interestingly, like nursing is one of the sectors that this theory actually doesn't hold up very well for.
Yeah.
So the likelihood is they're going to decrease borrowing power. And then what are the consequences of decreasing borrowing power? Let's just go through them.
Well, you want to talk about the demographics that are being affected?
Could be. Like, what does it mean if people can't borrow more than $20,000? Like fundamentally, I don't want to like make this the biggest deal in the world because it's fucking not. Not everybody's borrowing more than $20,000 for a nursing degree every year, right? Like this is only affecting a percentage of people. When you look at how much nurses borrow in the, I think, 2024 report that I was looking at today, maybe like 15 to 20% are like above that borrowing range.
20 per year?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I didn't know that. Well, for one, it's going to theoretically decrease the number of people that pursue this degree.
And why? So why?
Why what? Why would they? Because they don't want to go into that much debt, because they can't borrow, because they can't pay for it, or they don't want to take out unsubsidized loans.
That's what I'm getting at. That's one of the things you brought up early on is like, what happens when you don't have unsubsidized loans? And this young person who doesn't know that much about money yet thinks, yeah, but I want to go to this school and get this job at this hospital. What do? They go to a private borrower.
Yeah, and then we just get more people trapped in the student loan debt problem.
Yeah. And then what happens if they think, well, fuck this degree. I'm not going to do this if I can't like borrow unsubsidized. Then our nursing shortage gets way worse.
Yeah. Well, that and student loan debt is not expungible through bankruptcy. So
no.
They figured that out early enough, I guess. Yeah. But an interesting thing to bring up because given everything else that this administration has done, the attack on the profession of nursing disproportionately affects women and people of color.
And immigrant families.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure, that this white Christian nationalist regime wants to put women and people of color in a subservient role.
This is probably where we're just different because I actually think they're not smart enough to make that connection. I think for me, this is more like the dumb, like Trump thinks tariffs will fix this problem. He doesn't even understand the problem thing. I think it's a dumb fix that doesn't work. I just feel like this is a really bad economic decision, which has been most things since Trump took office. Like even the immigration stuff is like really bad economic decisions. Tariffs are really they say it's fixing a problem and it's not. And nurses are in the spotlight right now. And frankly, a lot of the friends that we reached out to, like they're feeling hot because of, again, the title change meaning, and that they feel that this is this demotion in how we see nurses. Mm-hmm. And there's something that is real about what we've just tapped into. There's a lot of rage there. And that kind of leads us into this other idea that in general, our medical professionals have lost so much respect and they go through so much and they do so much.
Undeservedly lost respect, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like since COVID, basically, I think that medical professionals are seen as corrupt and that they don't know what they're talking about. So the idea that we were kind of going on was that in general, nurses have been getting pushed further and further down sort of the totem pole of respect and ability to get into this career. So one of the folks I reached out to today has been part of like the strike for Kaiser, and there's a lot happening in the nursing world right now. And this is just like, I think it's maybe the straw that broke the camel's back a little bit, because like the vibes I'm getting from nurses right now are big. And I mean, to be fair, some of the stuff is really funny too. It's like, I hope the last thing that someone whispers in, Donald Trump's ear as he dies is a nurse calling him Miss Piggy or something. I mean, there's really funny things. Like nurses have a great sense of humor. I have found
do.
all the ones in my feed. Oh my gosh, thank you for your memes. And I have a friend who's in her 50s going through nursing school right now, and I reached out to her, and I thought about her immediately because she's in school right now, going through this super intense training and having to do science and tests that, like, frankly, like, I feel like I would never have the discipline now that I am this age to do something like what she's doing. And for her, she's kind of like, what is the meaning behind a change like this, and why? What does it do for the government, right? So they're going to be giving out less loans, but then functionally it just affects the nursing industry so hard, and it's not going to decrease the cost of their education in any meaningful way. So like, why is the big question. And so that's why we come to
the demographic thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the prevailing theory on the left, I guess, is that this is just another attack on women. And I mean, we saw when we did, I forget her name, the woman who campaigned against the Women's Equal Rights Amendment, Phyllis
Schlafly. Phyllis Schlafly. Oh my God, her name.
But McMahon gives me Schlafly vibes. That like, she is perfectly fine for her to be a professional, but she wants to continue or help out on this attack.
The other thing is like the nursing profession. We were talking about this today. The nursing profession as we feel it and see it now. Like, what's your experience with nurses today?
The most recent experience I guess I would have was when my late grandmother was in a nursing home not too long ago. I guess it's been 2 years now, but she was well loved and well taken care of. And in fact, I was very, very touched to see that a couple of those nurses attended her funeral, and they were there. And I thought that was really sweet. So.
And then in your personal life, do you see more doctors or nurses in terms of time?
Oh, in terms of time, that's a good question. I mean, like I only go in for like physicals and stuff now. I guess, and I guess the dentist. Do dental assistants count in this category? I wonder.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
I'd have to look that up too, but
probably not.
Probably not. But I see my PCP, primary care physician. She does her thing. And then I get seen by a nurse to do, my vaccines, or last time I went in to get my ears cleaned, they did
Gross.
that. Yeah, but it was fun. It was cool.
I definitely spend more time with nurses than I do with doctors, because when you go in, they do all of the stuff, right? They know how to read everything, and they administer things, and they're like really doing a lot of the work. When I'm talking to an actual doctor, it's usually like pretty short and quick. They're in and out. They like do the thing that they're paid to do, and then they're out of there and on to the next. And the nurses are the ones that are really doing a lot of the stuff. They're doing the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a lot of the heavy work. And actually, I want to read a quote from my dear friend, Andy Martinez Watrous, because she brings up a good point too. We just asked her for comment on the decision to declassify nursing as a professional degree, and this is a direct quote. In an era where healthcare is being forced to do more with less, the Department of Education's decision to limit financial opportunities by capping graduate loans for nurses to advance their careers is a move in the wrong direction for the well-being of the nation. Nurses are skilled at filling in health education gaps, noticing opportunities for improvement in clinical care, and building bridges in communities who are in dire need of evidence-based information, not propaganda. Nurse practitioners and physician assistants fill in a huge need in rural healthcare facilities where physicians often don't want to or can't afford to practice after accumulating so much debt. This move also shows how the government establishment has very little respect for the professions dominated by women: nursing, SLP, social work, accountancy. An absolute regression in all the profession has done to expand its ability to serve our patients in any way we can. And I want to highlight again what she brought up about nurse practitioners and physician assistants working in rural healthcare facilities. So you talk about people that see nurses more than doctors. Some towns don't even have doctors because there are none, because they can't operate there. They don't make enough money to pay off their loans, which is a separate issue for doctors and medical school costs. But that was a really good point that I had not thought of. I wouldn't have thought of because I didn't really know that. So I think that's another thing to consider is you're attacking this profession. You're directly attacking in some cases, the only source of health care in rural, poor communities in America.
Yeah. So one of the quotes I had from a nurse, I've never, I don't think I've met this person, but they said they do not want people from lower income communities to have an opportunity to climb the economic ladder. All of this no FAFSA is to create a financial barrier to higher education. So these are nurses themselves, which I think that's why I say, like, we can talk about, borrowing costs and having loans afterwards all we want. And actually in that 2024 report on like nursing education costs, yes, the ability to pay back loans is one of every student's concern, not just nursing, although this was one of the top concerns for nursing students as well. But then one of the second ones is the interest rate. Mm-hmm. And so all people graduating from college, especially nice universities, if they don't have a lot of money to pay for it, they are borrowing like we did. And then you have to come up with a plan to pay it back. And I do think it's worth talking about nurse salaries because some of them are quite good. And so we're not talking about like nurses being irresponsible and borrowing $100,000 for a job they'll never make money at, like a dance degree, right? So you could make that argument for me and I would be like, yes, let's have that conversation. I think that there's something to that. But most nurses, when they graduate and they get their first job, they're making good money. I'm not saying that they're able to pay off their loan right away. A lot of them choose the 10-year plan. Like in that report, it was saying a lot of them choose a 10-year plan. But the other thing that this new categorization is doing potentially is removing nurses from qualifying for a loan repayment forgiveness plan, which is a really important thing because this leads into our next topic as well.
Yes, but very quickly, and I don't know if this is true for unsubsidized loans because fortunately I don't have any, but I do know that in my subsidized loans, whenever I make a payment, no matter what it is, no matter what my interest accrual was for that month, a certain chunk always goes to the principal. So like the amount of money that is accruing interest is going to go down over time with subsidized loans. And then eventually you just have the interest and then you just pay the interest off. It's not like compounding interest, in other words. Not sure if that's the case with unsubsidized loans, which is how even if they're making $90K out of the gates, then they could still be underwater in 10 years because of the interest of unsubsidized loans.
Yeah. So. And some of these nursing degrees and some of these nursing positions, they are at or above many other types of doctors, right? You look at nurses that are going to be doing like anesthetizing type stuff. If they're working at these really high levels, nurses that are working in surgery, nurses that are working in some of these rooms that are like really high pressure, intense situations, these nurses make good fucking money, right? And so imagine that you are someone that comes from a lower income background, you have smarts, you have what it takes, and you have a dream of being this like badass high-end nurse, but you don't have access to the same money to get that degree. That's partially what we're talking about. And that's kind of how education used to be, is that the really nice education, the education that funneled you to the best paying jobs, was reserved for those that were usually white and wealthy.
Yeah.
And that this feels like it's kind of tipping back to that. And I don't, again, it's like, whether or not it's purposeful, we don't even have to care about whether or not it's purposeful. We just need to say, like, no, this is the wrong direction. We need more people to have access to increase the diversity of these like top level nursing positions.
Yeah, and even if this kind of a fix, like reducing the overall borrowing power of students to bring down the cost of tuition, in theory, if that is the case, then you should do it all at once. You can't just do it in this like piecemeal sort of fashion. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you just targeting this one nursing degree? If this is a solution, as you say, for the rising cost of education, why wouldn't you just implement that, carte blanche?
Yeah.
Because
why wouldn't the news kind of like come out of the gate that way of like, we've discovered that nursing education is the most expensive education compared to salary in the whole universe, and so we're doing this thing and we're confident it'll work because here's the data. That's like how you used to have to pass shit, and now they just like make these weird decisions and they're like, this is what it's going to do, and then it doesn't do it.
Yeah. And I mean, the last thing I'll say is that these education institutions have been built around the income that they generate from their tuition, from their students. So if you overnight essentially decrease that tuition income by 60%, how are the institutions even going to be able to survive? They have to lay off 60% of their workforce, basically. Do you know what I mean? They have to downsize drastically in order to lower their tuition costs, or they just keep their tuition where it is, and people just start taking out unsubsidized loans, and we're just creating worse problems.
The trade-offs, the trade-offs to this solution are not good. No. Is the point. And so yes, there are probably other similar type sorts of things, but again, it just feels like random and weird. I don't even care about the like classification change. Like personally, it's like I don't think it has to do anything with them caring about the word professional. It's actually the lowering of the borrowing power that I care so much more about.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said about the cultural clout that a profession gives. And so I am a little bit more defensive about that point, just because of the next topic that we're going to be talking on, because I am in one of those professions that falls into the category of a sanctification or a sanctified profession, right? These jobs that you do because it's a calling, or you want to serve the people, or you want to protect democracy, you want to be an essential worker, or what have you. We're not here for the money, in other words. Nurses, teachers, librarians, these are the ones that I'm talking about. And the concept that I learned about in library school was actually coined by a library studies scholar named, I'm going to mispronounce this, and I apologize. Fobazi Etar wrote an article called "Vocational Awe and Librarianship: The Lies We Tell Ourselves." So it's written about librarianship, but obviously can be applied to other professions, similar professions like.
And it has been.
Like teaching and nursing.
So the concept is vocational awe, and just in a nutshell, describe what that means.
Basically, what I was saying about the sanctification of the profession. So, like these professions are culturally thought of as being part of somebody's higher calling. So you're drawn to do this profession not for the money, but because of some sort of higher calling. And so what that means is these people can be taken advantage of, either with lower salaries or
longer hours,
no
benefits,
self-sacrifice, like doing more with less, working unpaid hours, or in the case of teachers, spending your own fucking money on school supplies because you hate seeing your children not be able to write because they don't have pens and paper, or buying them food because you can't stand to see a child go hungry. Yeah, that's horrible. We all don't. None of us sane people want to see children that can't learn and can't eat. But why the fuck does the teacher have to pay for that shit? You know what I mean? Oh, it's because she or he is there. They're not in it for the money. They're just a bleeding heart sucker.
Yeah.
We can just make them pay for it.
So one of the things I think is interesting about this concept, which, again, started in the library world, but really relates to libraries, of course, and teaching, which we mentioned. Nursing is specifically mentioned when you look it up, and journalism. So those areas in particular, and when you think about especially teaching nursing in libraries, historically, who are filling those roles? Women are, right?
Women.
Those traditionally are women roles. And when they've been told to us in stories, and when we've seen them in art and in cinema and in a historical context through many centuries, we don't think of those roles as being as important or as professional or as smart or as powerful as other things. They're kind of mom roles, right?
Yeah, and specifically in America, we should say white women, because if you look at anything from the 40s or 50s, the librarian was a white woman sitting with her nice little, 50s dress and, telling Johnny to be quiet.
Yeah.
Johnny was also a white boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it, too, is that it wasn't just women, but it was specifically white women. These were white female professions.
Yeah.
And since has obviously broadened, thankfully.
But I think there's something about the MAGA movement that wants to crystallize a little bit of that. There's a lot of women that feel that a lot of the moves that are being made, as you said, are sort of like wanting women to be back at home in the kitchen sort of thing, which,
trad wife.
Yeah. And I mean, it's always just such a paradox of hilarity, because it's always women that are very, very powerful that are making those decisions.
Yeah.
Encouraging other women. They're super powerful and rich, and they're just be a housewife. But...
Yeah. Or they're super powerful influencers
and educated
that make millions of dollars, and they're just be a housewife. I can do it. See how easy it is being a housewife?
Yeah.
Because you make millions of dollars telling other people to be a housewife.
Yeah. But sort of the point I'm getting at with some of these roles is that when you look at modern nursing, when you look at what these nurses have to learn, the pressure and the stakes of what they're actually dealing with, even on a technological level, I mean, it is insane. These are really, really heavy duty, smart people.
Yeah.
I don't think of nurses as the little white uniform, the little skirt with the little red cross and a little hat, putting a little bandage on just the way the doctor told her to, and
sexy Halloween
and
costume.
giving someone a sip of water, and that's this sort of weird traditional notion. Even teachers, you're saying, be quiet and pointing to something on the board.
2 + 2 = 4.
When really, you're listening to Heather Cox Richardson, who is a professor, right? That is a teaching position. When I think of journalists now, I think of people that are some of the bravest people on the planet, going into war zones.
But also some of the the movies that have been made of investigative journalists, especially female ones. There was that one with oh my God, I can't think of her name. Her brother is also a B-list actor. Oh my God,
Katie Couric? Who are you talking about?
No. Anyway,
okay.
the female journalists are badasses, and
yeah.
And maybe for a future episode we can do a little why is a school teacher a woman, and why is a professor a man? It's kind of
why is a doctor a man and a nurse a woman?
Why is a chef a man but a cook is mom? Do you know what I mean? It's the profession itself. If it becomes at a high enough level, then a man has to do it.
Yeah.
And
it's sort of infantilizing that profession and saying you don't get to borrow so much. You don't know what to do with that money. You're not going to make very much money. I think that's where my sort of fire comes in, is I think they can borrow $50,000 if they want to. They're going to be making $180K eventually doing this amazing job. Fuck you for thinking they...
I wish somebody had infantilized me and made me take out a little less, but yeah.
But you know what? I mean, this is what's so funny about this conversation and us having it, is that you have been saying forever how much you think people should go to community college for a couple years.
For sure.
Don't spend the big money yet. Do as much as you can for as little as you can first. So you do preach that message.
Yeah.
And then you also have had the other side where like you did that. You saved a lot of money in the beginning. You transferred to UCLA and then you got a sexy graduate degree from UCLA and took out a lot of money.
For more than just the, but
knowing, just like these nurses did, I have a job. You did it because you knew you had a job coming.
Exactly. Well, no, yeah, I was doing that job and I wanted to keep doing that job. And so I got the degree to do that job. And it's not, and librarian degrees are not the same as nursing degrees in that, you never hear about a librarian shortage. I mean, you hear about library funding being cut, but it's not the same as nursing. It's not like a guaranteed route to employment. Not that nursing is guaranteed, but you certainly have better odds at being employed, especially
you have a lot of options.
If you can move, it is almost guaranteed to be employed as a nurse, but not the same for librarians.
Yeah. And like we said, the cost of education is across the board, and the repayment problem is across the board. So, telling nurses you don't get to borrow as much now is just weird. It's just weird.
It's hard to not see it as an attack on women and people of color because of because it is such a targeted thing. It's not, why are librarians exempt from this professional degree thing? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's so strange. It's like you said, this is like, I would even defend the argument that nurses are more important than librarians. Like people, they save lives. Okay.
Yeah.
Like from little babies in NICU units to like taking care of our elderly and everything in between. Like, I'm not saying libraries aren't important. Librarians aren't important. Obviously I think that they're important. But like, what the fuck? Why are we attacking nurses of all people right now?
And physician's assistant and physical therapists. Physical therapists, like my life completely changed by going to a physical therapist who like helped me through back surgery and everything. I mean,
Droopy Don with his face drooping is going to need some physical therapy soon. So why is he? Anyway.
Strokey Don, listen to you. Apparently, like the nurse rage has gotten into us. I think we're like raging on your behalf. So yeah, I mean, the vocational awe thing I think is interesting. Like we were talking about this in terms of what professions deserve this or not, if that's how we want to put it. And then what professions actually get paid for that awe, that we're talking about. You were even talking about like policemen and firemen. We tend to see firefighters with a lot more of that awe these days than we do policemen. It used to be, at least in white communities, that you thought of policemen as your protectors and they were helping the community. And,
sure. Before the militarization of police, I would think. I mean, and for real, though, you look at the old pictures and paintings, it's like a little police officer with his little cap, and now it's like, they got AR-15s, bulletproof vests, night vision
and they are
goggles.
fighting scarier stuff in some ways these days, too. I mean, again, the escalation of what people deal with in general, the escalation of what nurses deal with, and the escalation of what all these what librarians deal with now. Oh. Can you imagine?
God.
The books have changed so much.
But the difference with police and firefighters, I would say, is that they still, police make a shit ton of money, and firefighters, I think, are also pretty well paid. But yeah, I wonder why.
I think they're both okay. I wouldn't say a shit ton, but I would say okay. It depends on where it is.
I mean, yeah.
And again, if we're talking about high paid, nurses get paid well.
I'm just going to look up the head of LAPD's salaries.
Okay, head is not what we're talking about. No. We're not talking about a head position. We're talking about people becoming a cop.
LAPD salary.
And LAPD is probably different than a policeman in a different city.
Sure. $100,000.
Okay, same as a nurse. So this is what I'm saying is the awe, are we compensating the awe? And actually, this is where we move to teachers, because teachers are for sure
underpaid.
the awe position that deserves that awe, that mostly is not getting what they deserve. And there's some like weird stuff happening with teachers where like they're avoiding taking them on as tenured. They like move them around, do all this stuff so that they don't have to hire them permanently, give them benefits or whatever. So they never get a contract with a school. And I'm so mystified by how everyone agrees that teachers should be paid more, and we're still not like voting on a bill in our local, like we're still not doing anything substantial about it.
Yeah, we're sending money to Argentina. The average, approximately average salary for LAUSD is $70K.
70.
which is not a lot in Los Angeles.
No, like if you were a teacher trying to support a family in LA, that would be
And support a classroom with supplies.
Yeah, that's what I supported myself on in a single bedroom apartment living alone on a really tight budget. Like that was, that's just not a family salary. And a teacher should be a teacher should be a position where you can make enough money to help support a family and, buy assets and things like that. It's not the only thing. I mean, I think that corporate America, when we say corporate America, is like this really big range of things, actually. But teaching I feel like even though they're unionized, which we've talked about before, they're constantly just getting the shit end of the stick.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a lot of awe for teachers, and everybody does, but for some reason.
Yeah.
You think the Department of Education is going to do anything about that?
You mean like to take away even more salary and awe?
I don't know. I guess the borrowing power for, teachers, I have no idea.
No, the wonderful business executive and female genius, Linda McMahon, is going to do her level best, I'm sure.
Uh-oh, I've touched a nerve.
Call to action.
Well, I think if you have strong feelings about this, certainly you're supposed to write into your congressperson and have them send a note to
about the nursing degree.
About the nursing degree. About the reclassification. So here's the thing. This is just a proposal. It hasn't happened yet. There's plenty of time for people to say what they want to say and make their arguments. And I would actually understand if somebody wanted to take up a good faith argument on, like, if you know a ton about, like, the nursing degree educational problem and how this is the only fix and they're actually brilliant and genius, like, you need to get out there, because I haven't seen it. I did a lot of research today and I haven't seen anyone actually pulling facts and stats. Like, I tried a lot. I had a long conversation with ChatGPT about nurses and salaries and repayment and averages and stuff, and it's like a percentage of people, again, won't even be affected by this because they're not taking out that much money every year for this degree. So again, why then? They're trying to protect the 15% of people that are borrowing too much? And I don't know, like it's usually private institutions and out of state or predatory type institutions that are for profit.
I mean, for all we know, Trump and the McMahons own lending company or something.
Ooh.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So that would not surprise me. That they always want to take it to the fam.
Yeah, make money.
Yep. And the nurses, I mean, they are loud and proud right now. So I feel like they're gonna make a fuss. They're gonna make real people fuss.
That's right. You fuss people.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening to this special episode of People Fuss, all about nurses and vocational awe. We have a big favor to ask of you. If you can click that little subscribe button on YouTube, we would really, really love that. Sharing this episode with a friend is one of the best things you can do.
Sharing it with a nurse is even better.
Yeah. Share it with a nurse. Ooh, that's a good one. Share it with a nurse.
Yeah.
Yep. Would love to know your thoughts on this if you have more information for us. For sure. But yeah, follow and subscribe, put a little comment in there for us. And you want to give the final credits?
People Fuss is a tight-knit production, and this episode was developed and produced by yours truly, Doug Daniels.
And Carrie Prince.
Our theme song is Human Colors by Delicate Beats. And our cats are geriatric, as it turns out. We should have mentioned this in our last episode on geriatric leadership. But apparently my vet told me that cats that are 10 or older are considered geriatric. So there you go.
So we got to go take care of our old kitties.
Yeah.
All right. Happy listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.